Welcome to the Create Tomorrow podcast and the first in a series of 4 shorter episodes we're calling the Milan Design Week Special, in which we'll be covering some of the main trends we spotted and featuring some of the most pioneering designers and thinkers that we spoke to at this year's event. I'm joined in this series by 2 of my colleagues, our Creative Director and Director of Interiors, Lisa White, and our Head of Interiors, Gemma Roberti. Lisa's been attending Milan Salone since 1995 and Gemma has been attending since the year 2000, so they really know this event inside out. Milan Design Week sets the agenda for creativity for years to come. Some call it the Glastonbury of the design world, and it certainly involves a lot of walking. We had 5 team members on the ground covering the events and installations. They took over 14,000 photographs, so subscribers can find several invaluable reports on our site covering the fair. We have key ideas on Insight, and on the interiors platform we've reports focusing on Euro Cucina, which is the kitchen show, Fiora Salone, which is all the events in town, and Salone de Mobile, among others. Our trends report, Milan Design Week Trend Analysis, lists 13 trends you need to know from the event, and in this short series of podcasts we'll cover 4 of those. Expect to hear from design world luminaries, from Faye Toogood to Jonathan Anderson and Tom Dixon, plus exciting emerging designers such as Krill Design and the team behind the Huggable Chair. Yes, you heard that right. So in this first episode, we're going to look at nature first. On a macro level at Milan this year, we almost couldn't see the wood for the trees. Forests were everywhere. Salone de Mobile, the actual fair at the Row Fairground, focused on the ongoing ecological transition of the design world with a mission to demonstrate it's both possible and crucial to start embedding sustainability and environmental awareness into furniture production. Meanwhile, the wider theme of Fiora Salone, which is all the events in town, was between space and time. This was about reflecting on the changes taking place in the world in order to achieve sustainability goals that allow us to look to the future. Milan was really aiming to be the stage where designers, companies, institutions and universities will try to imagine change through design. In this vein, we caught up with the design critic Alice Rawthorne, and she appeared with the editor, architect and curator Paolo Antonelli, and they spoke at Salone de Mobile about their new book, Design Emergency: Building a Better Future. This book evolved from their Instagram series, which was launched during the COVID lockdown. I asked Alice about the importance of Indigenous wisdoms, particularly because of the guardianship of biodiversity, so let's have a little listen to her now.
There's been an enormous amount of work in terms of the sort of spontaneous design ingenuity of Indigenous communities, and a brilliant book was published 2 years ago by Julia Watson called Lottie Kay. She had done extraordinary research all over the world into the work of communities in solving critical problems for them, with these sort of spontaneous eruptions of design intelligence. So an example would be the hanging root bridges in northern India, and these are villages that are separated by ravines. So they're literally at the top of mountains and hills. It's in an area that's incredibly wet for much of the year, and I say this as a Brit, way wetter than Britain. But seriously, there are monsoon storms, and so literally for many months of the year, each village is stranded. And normally they would go down the ravine and then back up again to visit neighbouring villages for supplies. So they're literally stranded in their homes. And so over the centuries, this expertise developed in cultivating living root bridges to ford the ravines. Now, they take decades to grow to their full extent. They need constant maintenance to strengthen the roots. And so these are collective endeavours by these communities. They've invented the methodology themselves. And there are endless examples of this all over the world. And these are the sort of techniques and methodologies, material practices that more and more designers and architects are focusing on and interpreting in their practice. So there are many examples of that in design emergency, looking back at the past. So whether it's an epic design endeavour like the Great Green Wall, where you have individual countries like Burkina Faso and Niger reinventing their traditional agricultural practices, rather than the sort of myopic adoption of Western practices that don't necessarily work in that terrain. Or another of the interviews is with Isabella Tree, who's an author who's married to a farmer in Sussex, and for 20 years they have allowed their farm to rewild. So this is another strategic approach to design. But, they had practiced industrial farming practices, all the politically recommended ones. Their farm was financially bankrupt, the soil was degraded, their land was dying. They knew they had to take radical action. So they decided that allowing nature to take control again was their only chance of regenerating their land. So that's a beautiful, very complex, long-term project that will continually evolve. But of course, that's a traditional solution that more and more farmers are returning to.
So back to the woods and the trees. Perhaps unsurprisingly, forests and biophilic design were huge. Lisa, tell us what you saw in this regard.
Well, as you know, we've been tracking this for quite some time in WGSN. In our report, we're calling it Nature First. At the Salone last September, with WGSN, we gave a talk with Paul Turner-Frau, with Marcin Rusak, the designer, and Laura Gatti, and Loro Piana on the subject of biophilia. And, that means that big brands are getting on board with the importance of biophilic design. And this time, Prada Frames held an amazing symposium, 3 days worth of talks on multi-species design that were completely full. And from more of a design perspective, Studio Swine showed Forest Tales at the Triennale. So this was in collaboration with the American Hardwood Export Council. And what I loved is they showed 22 new furniture pieces displayed kind of around a mountain. It was the packing crates of the furniture pieces, which were fantastically designed as well, too. And what I loved is Studio Swine had invited designers from every continent to participate. And the results were super innovative. And one of the most elegant solutions I found was the Thought Bubble rocking chair by Thai designer Nongchoti Patwoman. And it was just the most beautiful yet eternally gorgeous design, and definitely a highlight.
And they also had those lovely La Scala scene painters who sort of decorated those crates with a scene of the forest, which was just really very beautiful. And I guess turns the packing crate into a kind of piece to keep forever.
Yeah, that really drove the design element in the wood element home, because it is something that's permanent. It is something that is carbon sequestering. There's just so much to unpack there, literally.
Gemma, what about you? I know one of our top trends we've forecast recently was indoor trees.
Yeah, indeed. And there were so many of those, even at the fairgrounds, where you expect, the established brands investing into such big budget stand designs. Well, trees, full-grown trees we're talking about, were really playing a key role inside, but also outside the stands to draw people in, to really encourage this connection with nature. And it really worked best when the use of the trees brought to life the values, the stories, maybe the origin of a brand. So we're seeing, large olive trees for a Spanish or Tuscan brand, hazelnuts, grapevines. There was a very interesting brand, Fantoni, from Friuli in Italy. So the founder actually has a passion for maple trees, which inspired him the idea of growing seedlings of maple plants and actually feature them throughout the stands and also gift them to whomever was willing to take that home and grow it. So it was such a beautiful way to action on this and encourage people to take an active part. Even when brands were choosing cacti for that more tropical, lush setting, even those were supersized. So we're talking full-grown African mill trees, for instance. It was quite immersive. It was full-on biophilia woodlands.
I think also at Salone at the fairground, there was that very good exhibition by Mario Cucinella, Design with Nature, which had included an amazing timeline of the evolution of sustainable thinking that looked at kind of milestones in Stonehenge, like to 2050. But also there were lots of examples of building materials on display, and they had like actual things you could feel and touch, which was lovely, like hemp, bamboo, fruit leather, panels made of mycelium. And it was all about moving towards a circular building economy. But it kind of brought in trees and nature. Talking on this, a really lovely rising studio called Krill Design. We bumped into them on the street. They were just located by grocers, and they told us all about their biomaterials that they use to create objects.
We are a startup founded in 2018, and our line was developed firstly in 2021 with OMI, that is our orange lamp. That was a Kickstarter product that gained a lot of success. So now we made a whole collection, and now we are discovering new materials. So we are launching our lemon collection together with the orange one. So we collect the orange peels. These are the peels are originated by the production of orange juice. So the leftover, the waste, are collected, and they from Sicily. They are sent to us. With this waste, we dry them and make a powder. The powder is a very fine powder, around 300 microns. And with this powder, we can incorporate and compound it in our material, which is bio-based, composed with orange. And with this, we make our filament. The filament then is used to make any of our products with 3D printers.
And are you looking at other waste materials, or are you sticking with citrus peel?
With citrus, well, we worked with mostly orange, but then we also made some works. We started also with some potato, so we made some of the material with potatoes. And also another big chapter of our production was with coffee.
So there's more to come?
Yeah, actually coffee was something that we already developed, but we are managing also to produce more with coffee and also to discover different fruits.
That was Ivan Kalamani, one of the founders of Krill Design. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we spoke with the established French designer Patrick Juin of Juin Mancu Agency. They create furniture and lots of luxury interiors, particularly in the hospitality space. We caught up with him at the Casino showroom in town, where he just launched a fetching outdoor version of his Le Beau table made in aluminium. But here he is speaking to us about his latest retail interior in Seoul, which incorporates biophilic design.
So our agency, we are doing very different things. So, for example, we just opened in Seoul a project for Van Cleef & Arpels, and it's a boutique, but it's a garden. Okay, we have designed a garden inside the city, and into this garden we put an office, we put a boutique, we put a little library, we have indoor, outdoor space, and we don't know when you are in and when you are out. The garden is inside and outside. So it's in the middle of a very busy city with, you can imagine Seoul, so energetic. We have made a super peaceful place. And nature, it's something we need. We need to look at trees, we need to look at flowers. And in a city made of concrete and steel, you don't have this. So the extreme luxury is just to look at, to be inside a garden.
I love the sound of this because it's interesting what's going to happen with retail design, because obviously enormous amounts of people have ended up using e-commerce, and why would you go to a store, right? But I love that you've reinterpreted luxury as simply being in nature.
Exactly, it's to be in the garden, to go. A garden, it's especially Chinese or Korean or Japanese garden. The three are totally different. But okay, we can look at them and they have a connection anyway. But it's the way you walk, you travel into this garden with different perspective, and every time it will create a new emotion, a new relation with earth, with air, with water, with mountain, and you need this. So it's really this idea to reconnect with a time which is not the time of the second. It's the time of nature, the times of seasons.
So biophilic design is not only good for us, but it seems it's very much here to stay. That's it for the first in this Milan Design Week special series, in which we explored the nature first trend. You'll find much more information and inspiration in the reports on our subscribers site. You'll also find images relating to the projects discussed in this episode on our stories section of our Instagram platform @WGSN. Tomorrow you'll hear more about our second trend from Lisa and Gemma, and you'll also hear from the British designer Tom Dixon, who we caught up with at his show 20 during Milan Design Week. Find out how to subscribe to our service at wgsn.com, where we're constantly publishing new content focusing on how we can design a brighter, better future for our industries. And that's across food and drink, interiors, beauty, fashion and consumer tech. You can subscribe to the show on all major podcast platforms. And if you like what you've heard, why not leave us a rating and review? Thanks as ever to our producer Roland Bodenham, and listen in tomorrow to hear what the next trend is from Milan Design Week.